Hey guys, welcome back to the podcast. Today is a solo episode, and I'm really excited to talk through this topic because I feel like it's something that is quite relevant to me and my background, and also something that I work with a lot of the girls with as well on a one-to-one basis. So today's topic is going to be all about not sacrificing your relationship with food when you are pursuing physique-based goals. And I think it's something that comes up a lot, something that I've spoke to many girls about who have maybe come from working with other coaches or who've tried to do it by themselves and then have approached me later down the line, in that when they are pursuing physique-based goals, so, whether that be losing body fat, building muscle, body composition changes, or just generally kind of getting into the nutrition and the training element of things a little bit more seriously, they found that as they pursued these goals, their relationship with food has actually worsened. And as bad as it is, I've actually spoken to a few girls who have had this from actually working with other coaches who have maybe gone to too much of an extreme with these girls, and it's just led to them being in a really negative spot in terms of their relationship with food, which is obviously not the goal. So I just wanted to talk through how you can pursue physique-based goals and still preserve a very, very good relationship with food, because just doing like a little bit of background on me, and I'm sure I've done episodes on this before, I struggled a lot in the past with my relationship with food when I was a little bit younger, when I first started getting into bodybuilding. And obviously I'm not qualified as such. I'm not a dietitian or anything like that. And a lot of the girls that I work with on this do have separate support with this alongside me. But obviously it's something that I can empathize with when girls are going through struggles with their relationship with food. And obviously from a coaching perspective, I can help support them in terms of putting in positive things to help improve their relationship with food and their relationship with the gym and exercising in general. And that's something I value a lot, right, as a coach, is getting girls in a position where they do have a really strong relationship with food, they have a good quality of life. Like, there's so much more to progress than just losing body fat or getting leaner to get on stage or a competition. So yeah, just wanted to kind of run through that a little bit at the start. So obviously in the past, I struggled a lot with my relationship with food, and it's something that's taken a long time for me to get to a position where my relationship with food is good and it's in a really nice place. And obviously I won't be able to compete if it wasn't. So yeah, something that is really, really tough to go through. Really tough. And it's, you have to put the work in. If you are genuinely struggling with your relationship with food, it's not necessarily something that is just going to go away by turning a blind eye to it. It's something that has to be worked on and has to be sort of looked after in order to improve. So a little bit of an intro. Today, I wanted to start off talking about like my role as a coach, because obviously I do support a lot of girls with physique-based goals in terms of, I've got girls getting on stage, got girls doing photo shoots, and got girls just dieting generally for holidays and things like that. But I do also have a lot of girls who have goals outside of that. For example, improving their relationship with food, maybe have struggled with eating disorders in the past, have had professional help with that, and now, are ready to sort of get back into the training side of things. So supporting them with like their journeys, a lot of girls just in terms of their general life and their well-being and, how they live their life on a day-to-day basis. There's so much more to coaching than just a physique transformation. And obviously, yes, a lot of coaches do bash out like, transformations left, right, and center in terms of getting people leaner. And some coaches will push people regardless of issues that come up around their relationship with food and their well-being because of the physique-based outcome that they want. And, don't get me wrong, obviously sometimes you do have to push to that extreme, right? If you are getting on stage and you are at the back end of a comp prep, of course you are going to have to push, okay? And there's no you can't get away with with not pushing at the back end of a comp prep. But that's an extreme sport, and for 95% of people, they don't need that extreme approach. So yes, physique goals are important to some people completely, but it shouldn't mean sacrificing well-being. It shouldn't mean sacrificing relationship with food or life in general. Like, even for someone that is, trying to get leaner or trying to diet to a sort of higher level, most of the time, like 95% of the time, unless you are getting on stage, it shouldn't be like a detriment to the rest of your life. And even then, you know, competing should positively add to your life, not take away from it. And it's not something that you should be doing if you are struggling with your relationship with food. You need to have a really, really solid relationship with food if you are going to go down the road of competing. So yeah, my role as a coach is essentially what I value and that's important, right? What a coach values, what they sort of believe in, their methods, what is important to them, is helping girls to achieve their goals specific to them. And that not everyone wants to get lean, and not everyone wants to get on stage and compete. And I think, you know, a lot of coaches push people in that direction because they want the transformation photo. And, you know, some of the girls I coach don't take photos, they don't weigh themselves because that's not relevant to them and their progress. And I think it's so important when you do start working with a coach to make sure that you are aligned with, you know, you're both aligned towards the same goal and you are both on the same page with actually what does success look like for you, the client, what is important for you, and what do you want to take away from being coached. So yeah, just wanted to briefly talk through that. And obviously I work with girls on an individual basis to take them through that journey from where they are now to ultimately, you know, what do they want to gain from that coaching experience. And there's so many aspects and angles to be considered and so much more to it aside from just a physique photo as well. And yes, that is what some people want. And I do take, you know, weight and progress photos with a lot of the girls, but it's not the only thing we look at. And ultimately, if a diet or a fat loss phase is getting to the point, or even any physique goal, where it is sacrificing well-being and relationship with food, then I think, like personally for me as a coach, like I would not be happy to push someone to that extreme just for a physique progress photo or anything, because I just don't think, you know, it's not worth it in my opinion. And some coaches will disagree with that, but I just think there is a lot more to it than just a physique photo, and I'm not a transformation coach. So yeah, I just wanted to kind of summarize my role as a coach to begin with. So I think one of the best things you can look at doing is putting the groundwork in, okay? So this is in terms of being able to maintain a really solid relationship with food when you are pushing for physique goals. So you need to make sure, first off, that you have a good relationship with food prior to pursuing physique goals, because if you are struggling with, say, for example, like, I'm not saying a binge eating disorder, because obviously you will need to seek professional help, but if you struggle with maybe binge eating or, you know, bad relationship with food, negative relationship with certain types of food exclusion, there is nothing to be gained from going into a fat loss phase. And I regularly get girls come to me that have been put on ridiculously low calorie diets, like, you know, I'm not going to say numbers, but very low calorie diets that they probably don't need to be on. And they're in a position where they can't stick to those calories. They'll stick to them for a few days and then they'll go off at the weekend and eat, you know, everything in sight. And then they won't tell their coach about it because they're embarrassed about, you know, how they've done it. So in, you know, looking at that, taking a step back and zooming out and looking at that, there's nothing to be gained from that. All it's doing is making your relationship with food worse, and you'll be so much better off actually building a really solid foundation, you know, making sure that you are training consistently, you're able to kind of eat like a well-balanced diet, your relationship with food is really good, you know, you don't have any negative associations with certain food groups, you've got an all-inclusive diet, so you're not kind of cutting certain food groups out. If you've got that nice foundation, you know, first, then potentially, you know, if you do have a fat loss goal, yes, you'll be okay to go forward and pursue that a little bit more. But if you are in a position where, you know, your relationship isn't optimal, or you're finding that you're being, you know, restrictive and then overeating, and you're stuck in that really negative cycle, which is where I speak to so many women that come to me for consult calls that have spent years of their life, either with or without a coach, going through that cycle of, you know, undereating, overeating. And, you know, they'd be much better off actually getting nice and consistent without worrying about dieting before they do anything else. Because likelihood is with that, if you are actually, you know, eating slightly more calories, but you're able to stick to it consistently, you know, you're going to be in a much better position than that constant yo-yoing, because it's not a very nice way to feel in yourself. And it's not just the calorie intake, it goes a lot further than that, but it comes down ultimately like, how does that make you feel? Like it's not a very nice thing to experience and to have to go through, and it leads to kind of really negative mindsets around that as well with that cycle. So yeah, just something to be aware of. You need to make sure you have a good relationship with food prior to pursuing physique-based goals. And what I'll do with a lot of the girls that I work with before we go into a fat loss phase, we'll break all this down, we'll talk through how do they view food, is there any negative associations they have with certain foods? Have they tried approaches in the past that really haven't worked, or they have worked? Because all of this needs to be specific to you and your goals and what you feel works well for you. So, spend time developing a good foundation, get everything nice and consistent before you go for a physique-based goal. Because like a lot of the girls I work with, when they first come to me, even deep diving into their training, getting that nice and consistent, working out what exercises work well for them, their progression with the training, getting them structuring their day-to-day food better. So better organization with pre-planning the food, with their meal prep, with, their pre and post workout nutrition, making sure their meals are, structured well in terms of what the meals are made out of. Often actually spending time getting those nailed will lead to progress in itself before we've even specifically looked at, right, these are the calories you need to on a daily basis. Because then once you've got that foundation, everything else comes after that. It's just getting that foundation first. And lastly, obviously, we said good relationship with food, good foundation, make sure you have an all-inclusive diet, and also making sure you have a good coaching relationship. If you are working with a coach, like, you need to be open and honest with your coach. You need to be with a coach that you feel like you can talk to, and you can message if you're struggling. And I think that's the biggest thing, because if you are pursuing a physique-based goal and you don't have that relationship with your coach, and then you start struggling, if you don't feel like you can go to your coach and be open and honest, and that they will listen and support you, where do you go from there? Because what are you going to do when you start struggling? If you start struggling at any point, if you don't feel like you can speak to your coach and be honest with how you're feeling. And I also think I've seen this happen before. If you have a coach where you feel like embarrassed for them to see your food diary, if you're doing food diary tracking, or if you feel like, you don't want to talk to them if you've struggled, then I just think that is not a good setup for a positive coaching relationship. So, it's just taking a step back and asking yourself whether you feel, supported, because it should be a relationship where you feel like you can just chat, in my opinion, without any, judgment on the coach's behalf. So just something to be aware of there. So that's point number 2. The next thing is, and I think this is a big one. This is like one of my big values with coaching. Most of the time, you don't need to be extreme with your approach. And again, something I've seen like time and time again, working with women, going all in, 100%, cutting everything out, going super low cal, loads of cardio, unless there's a very extreme goal, like we just said, the back end of a comp prep, most of the time it's just not worth pushing that hard for. And remember that competitive bodybuilding is a sport, and sport obviously requires a level of extreme approach. Well, whereas for most people, making, even people that want to make some serious body comp changes, it doesn't require that much of an extreme. You can still live your life, have a well-balanced life and not push to that level of extreme, and make good progress. And most of the time it's just not worth it. The negative outcomes that come with prolonged dieting, excessive dieting, going extremely low with your calorie intake, doing a shed load of cardio, most of the time it's just not worth the negative connotations that like come with that as such. So yeah, it's just something to consider. And so many coaches out there will just whack girls on really low calorie strict meal plans from the get-go, without considering where is that person at right now? What have they done for the past few years? What is realistic for them? What have they struggled with in the past? Because all of these come into play when you're looking at the progress that you are going to make and what is achievable for you, and if you're going to be able to stick with it, that all comes into play. And so many coaches will just whack girls on straight on low calories, meal plan, off you go, without taking in any of that into consideration. So it's just an important thing to consider in regards to, it needs to be specific to you and your goals and what your history is and where you're at the minute and how you feel. It isn't just a case of putting you on a low calorie meal plan, sending you for loads of cardio and telling you to stick with it. There's a lot more that needs to be addressed with that. So just wanted to finish off. Okay, it's not been a super long episode today, but I think it's really a useful topic to talk through. What to do if you find your relationship with food is suffering. Okay, so first thing is be open and be honest with this, because if you are lying to your coach or you don't feel like you can talk to your coach, you're probably not with the right coach, being completely honest. Like, seek help. If you don't have a coach and you are struggling, obviously, if you have a specific eating disorder, you need to go to a qualified professional. You can go through the NHS, you can go private. Obviously, there's loads of ways you can go with that. And, even having support through counselling and, therapy, people that are qualified to deal specifically with eating disorders. Obviously, coaches can help support that, but you will need professional help if you have a diagnosed eating disorder. Obviously, if you don't, then it's worth seeking out a coach. If you're just struggling with relationship food in general, but you don't have an eating disorder, obviously you can work with coaches through that. But obviously, make sure you are choosing a coach that then can actually support you with it, rather than someone that is just going to put you on a low-calorie meal plan. So seek help. Be honest, be open if you do have a coach. And also, this is probably the biggest thing, like, spend time away from dieting, because often, and this is something I'll work with a lot of the girls I work with on, often there are underlying factors that need to be addressed and worked on over time. It's not just a case of, just don't cut food out, don't cut certain foods out, bring your calories up, and obviously things like that can help. But a lot of the time there's underlying factors that are leading potentially to you struggling with your relationship with food. And for a lot of women, it is a coping mechanism in terms of covering up something else that is going on. And ultimately, the underlying cause behind that needs addressing. So yeah, it's just something to have a think about. If you feel like you are struggling, reach out, talk to someone. I'm always happy to chat. If you feel like you just want to have a chat with me, you can reach out on Instagram. You can message me on there, and yeah, hopefully I can support you if you do want to have a chat. But it's just important to kind of consider these things, and to really remember that for most people, you don't need to push to that level of extremeness with everything. So yeah, in terms of what I was just saying, spend time away from dieting. You need to work on the underlying factors that are causing you to have that issue with food, or that problem with your relationship with food. A lot of the time, it's not just a case of, oh, I just need to be more consistent, I just need to improve my willpower. A lot of the time, there is something that needs to be addressed that is maybe leading to that, you being in that place with your relationship with food. So just something to consider with that. So hopefully this has helped a little bit. Like I said, please reach out if you have any questions, if there's anything that you'd like to talk to me about off the back of this, or even if you feel like you have experienced a negative relationship with food, or a coaching experience like making this worse. Obviously, please feel free to reach out, and I will be back next week.